Hey guys, my name's Review Demon and I'm going to try and explain the entire plot of GTA 5 for those of you who are pretty bad at comprehending games or those of you who just have pretty bad attention spans. So like you can read on screen, it all started 9 years ago, and right now we are introduced to three characters: Michael, the guy with a nice lumberjacket coat, Trevor at the back knocking on the window, and Brad, the guy in the yellow coat who dies. Spoilers. Shock. So right now they're doing a score and they're doing very well. They've got hostages and they're doing everything right. They're getting the hostages, they're threatening them, they're beating them up, and they're putting them into tiny little rooms. So they're doing quite well for themselves. And then, slowly but surely, everything goes tits up. The first thing that goes wrong is that on the way out of the vault, Michael here gets a gun pointed to his head, which is never good. Now, remember this quote: you forget 1,000 things every day. How about you make sure this is one of them? Remember this quote, this will be very important later on. So they make it out of the vault and everything's going pretty well, and then suddenly this guy shows up and kills Brad. And yes, Trevor immediately says someone must have fucking talked, because the police knew where they were and the helicopter wasn't there. So they got the idea that someone must have spilled the beans to the police. And that's kind of what happened. In fact, the whole thing was set up right from the start, and can you guess who did it? Yes, Michael, the guy on the ground who just got shot, was the guy who set the entire thing up. He wanted to make sure his family gets out clean, and so he made a deal with a guy called Dave Norton. The deal was that, in return for Dave furthering his career by foiling the heist, Michael's family would be able to move to Los Santos, and he'll be part of a kind of witness protection thing, and he will live happily ever after and have great securities for his entire family. And you see this in a flashback towards the middle of the game, I'd say. So Trevor, that poor bastard, has no idea that he got set up and no idea that it was by his best friend Michael, and he thinks that Michael has actually died and that Brad was the one who got sent to jail. And that's exactly the opposite of what happened. It turns out that Michael is alive and Brad is the one that is dead. In fact, Brad is being buried in Michael's place. The tombstone that says Michael here actually contains Brad. But Trevor doesn't know this, so shush. 9 years later, Michael and his family are doing extremely well. They have a massive house, they are rich, they have a swimming pool, they have a tennis court in their house, but for some reason Michael's unhappy. He's in therapy and his relationship, or his marriage with his wife, isn't going too well. In fact, his wife starts cheating on him. And with the tennis coach. What a cliche, right? So in his rage, he goes and chases this tennis coach around Los Santos and then fucks over his house. Well, he thought it was the tennis coach's house. It turns out it wasn't the tennis coach's house. In fact, the house actually belonged to this guy, Martin Madrazo, some Mexican crime lord, warlord, gang leader, boss, whatever you want to call it. But he's pissed. He's very pissed that his house just got trashed by this guy. So he demands $2.5 million from Michael to repay him, and obviously Michael does not have $2.5 million, even though he's quite rich anyways. So what does he need to do? He goes back into a life of crime with his new homie, Franklin. This guy. Yes, this guy, Franklin, who he's just met from Franklin scamming him. So he goes back to his life of crime, and with his homie Franklin, they pull off a $2.5 million jewelry heist that goes well, except for one mistake, and that mistake is pointed out by Dave, and Dave is around his house right now to tell him that big fat mistake that he's just made. All the while, Trevor is fucking this prostitute woman thing. Yes, he says his quote, his famous quote: "You forget 1,000 things every day, make sure this is one of them." Trevor hears this on the television and he is shocked. First of all, he doesn't know what to think. He kind of thinks that Michael is being impersonated by some bastard using Michael's name, so he gets pissed. And very pissed. He kills somebody, in fact. Eventually, Trevor tracks Michael down and confronts him. Now, Trevor knows that Michael is alive and doing very well, but he has no idea that Michael was the one who set them up 9 years ago, and he still doesn't until later on, until he actually figures it out. But until then, he and Michael and Franklin, they get up to all these hijinks and heists together, because they get round up and entwined to a kind of war between the IB and the IIA because of Michael's connection with Dave. 20 odd missions later, Trevor finally uses his head and asks himself who the fuck's buried in Michael's grave, because he was at the funeral and saw that they did actually bury somebody. So he wants to know who's in Michael's place in his grave. He's kind of figured it out at this point that Brad's the one who's dead and Michael was the one who had set everything up, but he's, you know, just suspicious. He hasn't really confirmed it. So Trevor flies all the way out to North Yankton to try and confirm his suspicions, and he does. He finds Brad in the coffin of Michael DeSanta. Now, he's kind of pissed. Trevor kind of knows that Michael was the one who set everything up, and he swears that he'll kill him. But it turns out he doesn't actually kill him. In fact, he actually ends up saving his life in the end. So that's kind of disappointing. In the midst of all this, Trevor had actually kidnapped Martin Madrazo's wife, and to sort it all out with Martin Madrazo, Michael offered one final heist, the Union Depository, and they were successful. They robbed about 4 tons worth of gold, and they are all very, 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 very rich by the end of this. And yet, Michael and Trevor, they still don't get along. Franklin's just Franklin, and Lester, poor dear old Lester, he's just caught in the middle of it all, not knowing what to do. Well, Trevor and Michael are still at each other's throats. Michael doesn't really like Trevor because Trevor, well, he's, you know, a bit of a slob, he has no morals, and he's kind of scary, and Trevor hates Michael because, well, he screwed over Brad and his entire crew. So, understandably, they've both got things to hate about each other.
You say? Well, this is a good time.
Let's fuck you, man! Hey!
Right towards the end, this guy, Devin Weston, shows up. I'll explain who he is later on, but Devin Weston shows up and tells Franklin to kill, Michael. Yes, Michael. Now, Franklin has an option. He can either kill Michael, or he can kill Trevor, or he could kill nobody. And for the sake of happy endings, I'm going to say that he kills nobody. So, because he kills nobody, he now has to unite Michael and Trevor together to take out everybody who's against them. And that means this guy, these guys, and the guy in white here. The guy in white here actually ends up being an enemy because he actually sets up his friend Lamar, the guy in green, and so Franklin's still pretty pissed about that. So in the end, they send Michael off to kill him. Well, and this prick here is an enemy because, well, he's in an organisation that is in rivalry with Dave's, and so they're both looking for glory and fame, but he's a bit more ruthless, and he's kind of forced Michael and Trevor and Franklin to do all these heists and not even give him enough money for it. So yeah, he's just a bit of a massive prick really, so in the end we decide to kill him as well. And these Chinese guys are after Trevor because, well, Trevor's business is kind of interfering with the Chinese triad's business, and therefore the Chinese want him dead. So in the end they decide to kill the Chinese triad leader, Wei Cheng. Now, this guy, Dave Weston, he's the big bad boss of the game, really, and he's a big bad boss purely because he's way too rich. Now, he's so rich that he kind of controls everything. He controls 11% of Merryweather, which is the PMC in this game, and so he's a very dangerous man, and because he's actually done some things to piss off our main characters. To Franklin, he's held up his money. Basically, Franklin did some jobs for him, but he's never paid Franklin, so Franklin's kind of pissed off with Devin. Michael's pissed off with Devin because Devin tried to stop a film that Michael had been producing. Oh, and Devin tried to kill his entire family. And Trevor hates Devin, well, because Trevor hates most people. And in the end, all their problems are solved. Michael goes ahead and kills Stretch, the guy who had set up Lamar, Franklin's homie. Trevor goes and kills Steve Hines, the guy who was on the Ferris wheel, who was working for the organisation that was rivaled to Dave's, the guy who was forcing them to do all these heists and not pay them for it. And Franklin goes ahead and kills the Chinese guys that are after Trevor. Now, all their individual enemies are tied up and gotten rid of. Now it's just Devin Weston who's everyone's really pissed off about. Now, Devin gets killed right about now. Yep, they push him over a cliff in a car, and the car explodes. Now that's it, everybody's happy, everybody's alive, everybody's enemies are dead, Michael has his family back, Franklin has his homies, and Trevor has his trailer. Yeah, Trevor has his trailer. And that's really about it, guys. That's the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you comprehended some of the facts in this video. I understand that some people don't think that Michael was the one who set up the heist 9 years ago in North Yankton, but I'm pretty sure he did. I don't recall there being any part of the game that actually specifically says that Michael was the one who set the whole thing up, but I'm pretty sure the evidence there is pretty strong and clear. But that's something for you guys to decide, really. So you can either think that Michael did set up the entire thing, or you can think of it as Michael not having set up the entire thing, and he just meeting Dave earlier. I mean, after the heist that went wrong. But that's it. So I hope you enjoyed this video, guys, and I'll see you guys next time.